So I scribbled down the phrase code as speaking medium on my pile of papers last night because I was thinking about how it took, I sort of did the conventional wisdom thing and I was like trying to get support, like trying to get like funding and what have you for Intertwingler and Sense Atlas. And people just didn't get it. They didn't understand. They didn't understand why it was useful. They didn't understand like why it would be a desirable thing to have. And you hear the phrase like "fake it till you make it," but in this case, the cheapest thing to do was to just make it. And the reason why is because it is it's a dynamic system that has to function in order to show you what it's doing and why it's valuable. And so, like, in advance of having the thing, it was impossible to express to people, like, why the thing would be useful. And I sort of think about it like, when people, pay a whole lot of money to somebody to stage their home for sale. And it's like, well, why is that? Because the median person walking through there in a showing is just cannot imagine like what the living room is going to look like if it's empty. And so, you pay all this money to like truck in furniture and artwork and, fake plants or whatever the heck you do so that, so that you're communicating an idea to somebody. And, in that case, I actually think like code can be a speaking medium. And I think about that because I have a friend who sort of went the VC backed startup route, and they were told, of course, the received wisdom is that, oh, you're a CEO now, so you have to delegate everything. And I think, and this person thinks that was a mistake, actually, and wasted a lot of runway trying to communicate an idea to the staff when they could have just written a prototype and handed it to them and just be like, flesh this out. And I sort of think of it in the case of like, when Frank Gehry sort of like trots into his office and crumples up a piece of paper and goes, there, make it look like that. That's actually a caricature because turns out, if you read Fleevberg's book, How Big Things Get Done, Gehry actually is remarkably good at getting things on time and on budget for what they call a starchitect. And of course, he would balk at the term starchitect. But I mean, he's sort of in the pantheon, so, you don't get to choose that, Gehry. Linus Torvalds would be another example where, he actually signs off on every commit to the Linux kernel still. Now, what he did, though, was he defined the interface for the module. So, like, you can come and contribute a module, whatever, I don't care, like, go nuts via Condios. But he actually, wrote the code that is the kernel and doesn't accept input except when he feels like it. Now, so I guess the thing is what I'm trying to say is that like the received wisdom of like, oh, you should delegate, like, well, absolutely delegate as much as possible, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to delegate everything. And especially if you personally have the skills to express in the medium, it's just like, can you draw? Then draw. If the situation needs a drawing, you don't need to just tell, a subordinate. That is a ridiculously low bandwidth way to do it. I mean, it's now same sort of deal with like ChatGPT. You want to be a middle manager and just like sit there coaxing it to try to get your outcome when you can just do the outcome yourself. Is it really that necessary to delegate at this point? And I mean, maybe for some people it is. But I say that if you have the skills to express, in the medium that is the target medium, then that is going to be the clearest, most unambiguous thing you can do to get your point across. Anyway, gonna finish my coffee.